The Pulse Network. It's social TV.
Hello everyone, welcome into CIO Insight here on thepulsenetwork.com. I am Tyler Pyburn, and as always, we are here to, educate you in the world of CIOs. And of course, to do that, we have, as always, Mr. Eric Lundquist of Ziff Davis Enterprise. Eric, how are you?
Well, sometimes those CIOs educate us too, you know, Tyler.
They're the ones that usually do the educate, and I sit back and take notes. That's the way it works.
But as always, every week there's a lot going on, a lot of activity. Got some good news this week. Got a couple interviews coming up. So yeah, we've got a full schedule.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's safe to say, folks, that we've got a ton on the slate today. So let's kind of jump right into it. And as always, to kind of bring us the news, we have to go to our own Ashley Daly. Ashley, welcome into the show. How are you, my friend?
Hey Tyler, hey Eric, how are you guys doing today?
Great.
Doing very well. This is a serious Ashley Daly that I'm seeing for the first time.
Really? Now this Ashley Daily is about to have some fun with these headlines because, as you said earlier, we have a ton going on this week. Kicking things off, some big news in New York and some good news for the economy there. IBM, Intel, Samsung, Global Foundries, and the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company agreed yesterday to pour $4 billion into computer chip research in New York, promising to hire thousands of workers. Now, the announcement was made at an economic development conference yesterday that was held in New York as well. Also on hand was former President Bill Clinton, who urged business leaders and local officials to embrace environmentally friendly technology and new industries as everyone is trying to create jobs. So very good news for the mayor there, Eric, huh?
Oh, absolutely. I was in New York yesterday, in Manhattan, not at this conference, but there's this brewing rivalry between New York and California, between Silicon Valley and, I don't know, the canyons of Manhattan, I guess. But to see this type of investment really, I think, speaks a lot for the sort of spreading of technology, both in terms of the established companies like an Intel or an IBM, but also in terms of startups. There's a lot of really interesting startups in New York, in Manhattan, actually also in Boston. But I think just as we've always talked about cloud computing, being able to spread computing all around the infrastructure, now you're seeing startup companies and even established companies spread out more and more.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, switching things up from one city to another, we're heading over to Washington for this one, where the Department of Defense is planning to extend the cyber defense pilot program, in which it shares classified threat intelligence and defense contractors and other companies. So basically, the Defense Industrial Base Cyber Pilot provides member organizations with classified information about viruses, malware, and other cyber threats to basically help them defend against sophisticated attacks and network intrusions. The pilot, we're told, is being extended through mid-November, and that was reported by the Associated Press on September 26th. So this is an interesting program, huh, Eric?
Well, it is. You know, I think this pilot program really is an example how the government and industry can work together. There's really neither of them know everything there is to deal with cybercrime. They both know cybercrime is growing exponentially and that there's a lot more intrusions. There's always been a real question of how do you share information, because if you really figured it out, you don't want to let everyone know. But this sort of takes place behind the scenes. It's been a pilot program, and I think it's a good thing to see it expanding this industry government relationship.
Yeah, now they're saying that there were over 20 different companies who were involved in helping them do this, and it kind of makes sense. I mean, the government obviously can't do everything, and when you have an expert out in the field, why not combine forces? But what do you say to the security aspect of this? I mean, I know the Department of Homeland Security is involved to try to make sure everything kind of nothing gets leaked, but what do you say to that?
Well, it's a real interesting dilemma because, as I said, you know, if you're really a good security researcher and you figured out how to block something, you don't want to release the information. Obviously, the government, Homeland Security, has really tried to lock down a lot of information, but I think they realize that what you need to really do is share it among trusted sources. And this is really what this is all about. How do you share among trusted sources? How do you know the information that you're sharing? And then how do you advance the sort of defense capabilities? I think there's a generally recognized need for really new cyber defense tactics, because it's not just the hacker in the basement. Now you're seeing at least allegations of governments coming in and trying to hack into the U.S. networks. So the ante's really been upped, and I think so you really have to ante up in terms of the capabilities.
Okay. Now, we may have heard this, you guys may have heard this story. It was broadcast across all of the big networks yesterday, because Facebook has, for the very first time, formed an old-fashioned political action committee, a PAC, and it will use it to distribute cash to candidates in the coming elections. It is just one indication of how social media companies are integrating with the political landscape in a season in which these businesses are growing presences in the campaign conversation. Now, if you guys remember back, Google co-sponsored a Republican presidential debate with Fox Networks recently, and then we obviously saw Facebook held a town hall style meeting, and then LinkedIn recently had one with President Obama. It's a really interesting dynamic, and I want to hear your thoughts on what you think about these companies really diving into the political landscape is going to be like.
Well, you've really seen, I think, a change, Ashley, in terms of, in the last presidential election, you could argue that was the sort of social media election. You talked about candidates really being able to use social media. Well, now in this cycle, you're seeing the social media companies have grown in influence. And traditionally, a lot of tech companies stayed away from Washington. They sort of thought they could do their own thing. Facebook, in particular, will not be able to keep doing its own thing. You just saw the changes, a lot of this whole frictionless sharing piece that came from Facebook over the last week or two is really going to run into a political storm. And what you're seeing them do in forming PACs is to start building up friends in Washington. Because I think as they grow in influence, you're going to start seeing a lot of legislation or potential legislation come in to try to restrict either what they're doing with privacy or restrict their growth, so they're becoming political animals in themselves.
Yeah, when we're looking at this, Erica, I need to take a look. It looks like we might have just lost Ashley for a quick second. But, and let me ask you this. As far as moving forward for something like this, how do you really go about it? It seems interesting to me.
Well, it is. I mean, who can you be a company growing as fast as something like a Facebook and having so much influence and now having a lot of privacy concerns surface at the same time? I don't know if you've gone into your Facebook account recently and started looking at your timeline and how this whole sharing starts to work, where you start to share your information, even if you don't know it. You don't have to click on the like button or the share button anymore. If it's on Spotify, it just gets, and you're listening to some music, it can just get pushed to all your friends. I think that raises a huge amount of privacy concerns. And
well, as I say right now, I mean, that seems to be the general consensus with all of them, is the privacy. It's been nonstop with every single thing that we've come out, whether it has to do with cloud computing. I mean, I was just when you were saying that you were in New York and we're going back and forth between New York and Silicon Valley, that's where I just was.
I know you're
the
there.
main concern over there at the storage developers conference has to be surrounding privacy. That's what it's all about right now.
It is, and so I think, they're trying to anticipate, are there going to be privacy laws that are going to come forth, and can you have an influence on what those laws be so that they aren't so restrictive you go out of business, but they're so strong that customers start to feel confident. And I think that's really, why you see Facebook trying to develop PACs and why you see Google get more involved in Washington. Plus these are, Tyler, these are just big companies. They're big companies and they want to have an influence in Washington.
Can they actually have an influence in Washington? That is the major question that everybody is actually wanting to know. And I believe we do, in fact, have Ashley Daly back. Ashley, do we have you, my friend?
Sorry, guys. I don't know what's been going on here lately. My connection has just been horrible. Charlotte's a little bit slower in their pace, so I wonder if the internet's a little bit slower today.
Don't let them hear you say that. You'll be back on a modem at some point.
I know. Well, so really exciting news. Amazon's Kindle Fire is being unveiled today in New York City, and it's been receiving a lot of buzz. All of this buzz is basically because a tablet computer will only cost $249. This is leaving analysts to believe it will be the most successful alternative to Apple's 9.7-inch iPad. Now, this is only a 7-inch slate based on Google's Android operating system, but it's built by Quanta, which makes the RIM BlackBerry Playbook, so it's a very serious contender.
It's an incredibly serious contender, and I think it's probably the most interesting tablet you've seen since the iPad. You know, other companies, Google has come out with one. You've seen a lot of people come out with the Android ones. But Amazon is really all about content. They want to be able to push content, both books, magazines, and increasingly a competitor for Netflix. So they don't actually have to make money on their tablet. They want to get the tablet in as many hands as they possibly can, and they're going to make their money in renting, leasing content. So it's really very different than what Apple was able to do. Apple obviously came out with a really interesting, great format, gained all the market share, and then started building content that would go into it. Amazon comes into this the opposite way. They're a content company. They just want to get that tablet in as many hands as they possibly can, and at that price, they really can. I think, you know, a game changer is used a lot, but certainly this is the strongest competitor that I have seen to the iPad, and really coming at it from a really different way. The business model is different, and it's a very strong model.
Now, also kind of getting into new product releases, we talk a whole lot about Apple on the CIO Insight Show. We've talked a little bit about the Windows Phone. Eric, obviously, as you know, you're not the biggest fan of Microsoft anymore, as you think they need to hurry it up and catch up with the rest of the world when it comes to technology and, of course, their smartphones. Well, we have 3 really quick headlines I do want to hit on today. First of all, Microsoft has begun rolling out its Windows Phone 7.5 Mango update, which it hopes will make Windows Phone a more powerful smartphone competitor. The update includes hundreds of tweaks and new features, including multitasking and a revamped Office hub. And for those of you business users who use Office 365 on the phone, who want to tweak your documents via your smartphone and have those chances sync between devices, that capability is now present. Now, second here with Microsoft, Samsung had just signed a Microsoft patent licensing deal over Android. So what this means is Samsung has agreed not only to commit to Windows Phone as a platform for their future devices, but to also collaborate with Microsoft on the marketing of the OS. Now, lastly here today, Microsoft's web-based Windows Phone marketplace went live yesterday, years after competitors Apple and Google launched their own, but it does launch with over 30,000 apps in tow. And after purchasing an app from the web store, you can choose to receive it on your Windows Phone hardware or via email or text message. So that's pretty cool. So Windows is making a comeback, it seems, Eric.
I guess, you know, Ashley, I think we're going to take your iPhone away from you and give you a Mango phone. Are you ready for that?
No.
To be down there in Charlotte, and you'll be able to take out your Mango phone when everyone else is looking at their iPhone. It's the stuff that Microsoft had to do. You know, the whole patent thing that's a whole different animal. You know, that was an agreement that they reached with Samsung. Samsung wants to be able to market its Android phone. Clearly, part of the deal was they were going to support Microsoft also. Being able to use, for business, being able to use your Microsoft applications on your phone is very appealing. It was something they really had to do also. And then the third thing was to build up their app store. So they're doing all the right things. The question is, are they doing it, you know, in the right time? I think October 4th is going to be when the next Apple iPhone is coming out. You're going to have to take a look at those features. But, you know, right now you've got to say Microsoft, even with its size, is really going to have to learn how to be a contender in the market rather than a leader who's also getting in.
All right, guys. Well, that's going to go ahead and do it for this week's headlines of the week.
We're going to go put a big satellite on your roof there, Ashley, so you'll always be connected to us.
I'll take it.
We'll make sure we get that, as well as, you know, maybe some tickets to the Florida State game, see how they do this weekend. Anyways, Ashley, it's always a pleasure, my friend. But you know what, guys? We have to take a break. We've got a lot more CIO Insight coming your way. Don't go anywhere. You're watching the Pulse Network. What's next now?
The Pulse Network. It's What's Next now.